This podcast is brought to you by Pragmatic Solutions, the leading iGaming PAM platform with a modular approach, including many benefits like a fast, secure, and scalable API-based platform, integrated with all major third-party products and services. Make sure you head over to Pragmatic Solutions and join our smart thinking.
And welcome to the iGaming Next podcast here today with Erin Lydon. How are you doing today, Erin?
I'm great. Nice to see you, Pierre.
Great to have you with us here as well. And today's episode is something that I'm quite excited for because we're going to talk about women in poker. And poker is something that is close to my heart. I started in the poker scene at the tender age of like 16 years old. And poker has always been an inspiring game in my own personal development and so on and so forth. And the project that you have started here with PokerPower is really interesting as you are trying to bring more women into poker, which is a big issue, of course, for those of us who have been in the poker world for a long time. There's always been a lack of women playing poker. But as a starting point here today, Erin, it would be great to have an introduction from yourself and hear more from your perspective of what it is that you are trying to achieve with PokerPower.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you are correct. There are not enough women playing poker globally. If we look at the numbers, it's about 100 million plus people who play across the world. And we know that 5 to 10% of them are women, and professionally it's 4 or 5%. So it is just a very small number of women who are sitting at the table. And the reason why that matters and the reason why PokerPower was founded is that we also know that the gameplay and the strategies and the skills that are practiced through poker are critical for leadership. They're critical for professional development. They're critical for personal development. And it's everything from strategic thinking, it's problem solving with imperfect information, it's getting comfortable taking risk, which is an incredibly important skill to have, and negotiation, as well as just the fun of gameplay, which is maybe the most important thing. Is poker, at the end of the day, poker is really fun to play. But PokerPower evolved because we saw the connection between those skills that are practiced in the game and things that we felt that women really needed in the workforce. And so we were launched during the pandemic. Very difficult time to launch a company. Some made it, some did not. We made it, and the reason we made it is because we were able to very quickly pivot to build a virtual curriculum. And the way that we built our curriculum is it's for women plus only. It's a very empowering and welcoming community. We know that 95% of the women who learn with us have never sat at a poker table. So they're intimidated, they're hesitant, they're not really sure this is what they want to be doing, but they do want to accelerate their careers. And they have bought into the narrative that play poker, get promoted. Play poker, ask for a raise. Play poker, get your husband to take out the garbage. So there's a lot of good things that come from learning to think like a winning poker player. And then my background personally is I spent my career on Wall Street. So I always say I was surrounded by a lot of men and a lot of poker, and I never took my seat. And the reason I didn't take my seat is there truly is a force field around the poker table, and it keeps women from sitting down and playing and competing. And we see the exact same force field in the leadership suite, where most of the leadership roles are still held by men. And that's where PokerPower comes in. We know that we can advance those numbers. We know we can help women progress their careers by repetitive gameplay and getting better at poker.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic initiative. And I want to ask you this from your perspective. Why do you think it is that so few women are attracted to poker in general? You mentioned here the 5 to 10% in general. Why is that, do you think?
It's a few different things. And we have now taught over 30,000 women. So we've asked this question a lot. And right. It truly is everything from having missed the opportunity. So what happens as it did for you, Pierre, is boys start to play the game somewhere around 12 to 15, and they get exposed to it through friends. Maybe it's summer camp, maybe it's an uncle or a grandma who's teaching them the game. And young girls are not included in that. So the girls are missing that early opportunity to get comfortable with the game. And then everyone goes to university, boys, men now continue to play. And it really becomes a boys' space, a boys' club. and very intimidating for a woman to be capable of walking into that space and taking her seat. She also doesn't have the same knowledge level. And as you know, poker is very simple to explain. I can do that in a minute or two. But it is a lifetime to master the game of poker. So it's an intimidating game. It's a complex game. The game has, as you know, jargon that is really hard to crack. You say everything wrong in the beginning. When you're called a fish, you're like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't really know. And it just adds to that barrier of entry to the game, is you don't even understand what's being said at the table. Thirdly, poker happens in very opulent places. Not too long ago, I was in the casino in Monaco, so one of the most beautiful places in the world to play poker, just as much as it happens in basements that are smoky and dark and really unwelcoming to women. So you have these two extremes where the game is played. And to play those games, most of us think there's a lot of money that's transacting. And what we know, especially about women, is that if you have a few extra dollars, you're going to spend it on your children, you're going to spend it on those you love, you're going to spend it on your charity. You're not going to go and take it to a casino. It's very unlikely that women do that. In contrast, what we see men do is they will go to a casino, they will go to a home game, and they have $20 they're spending. They have $200, they have $2,000. They have a dollar amount, and it's entertainment. These dollars are getting spent, and they're going to entertain themselves with them. Women don't value their money and allocate their money the same way. So we don't know how to play. We're scared to play. We're not included to play. And then we really don't want to spend our money this way. And all of those things coupled together make women say, why does poker matter? Why does poker matter? And that's what we're changing. We are really changing the perspective around poker and helping women live life differently through the gameplay of poker.
Brilliant. And do you see kind of a transformation then when you get the women around the table and they learn how to play and they kind of go through that process and the courses that you teach? Do you see kind of a transformation along the line, like when they play, and do they end up kind of having a different perspective of the game at the end?
Yeah, very much so. And I think this will be familiar to many of your listeners. When you start to think about poker players, one of the things that we teach early on is to categorize the gameplay styles. And so when I started, because I learned poker with PokerPower, I would categorize myself as a maniac. I like adrenaline. I like the rush of adrenaline. I love to shove all in. So I'm not risk averse at all in how I live my life, how I behave at work. So I was in that maniac quadrant. Below that one, we have the calling station. Many people fit really nicely into the calling station. They want to see the flop. They want to be in the hand, but they're very easy to manipulate at the table. Lots of our beginner women fall there. Then the other quadrant that they fall into is the rock. They're always waiting for that perfect hand. They're waiting for the pocket aces, and they're going to fold everything until they get them. And as we know, that's not going to come. It's going to come once in a while, but you better not be waiting for it. You have to learn to value bet and bluff. And then that upper quadrant on the right, that's the pro. That's what we're hoping we will be. That's what our teachers are. And we're trying to help women go from being in those lower quadrants to that upper right, where they can actually have discipline when they play. They can bring aggression to the game, and they can try to maximize the profit, which for us, there's no real money transacting, but it's the size of your chip stack. And we take a lot of pride in having big chip stacks that have been built up and getting women really, really excited about seeing visually in their chip stack, whether we're playing virtually or in person, scoop all those chips in and validate the decisions that you've made at the table. So yes, we see a really quick transition. It's usually around lesson 3 or 4, where the jargon starts to make sense, the rules make sense, and now they start to play for real.
I'm going to take a quick guess here, Erin, that the maniac style of playing poker is what you often see with people from a Wall Street background.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah. Well, I also, I've lived a very lucky life. And so I think, I've made a million mistakes in my life and had a lot of failures. But at the end of the day, I do think Lady Luck is in my corner. And so I have modified my gameplay quite significantly. I am much more disciplined in how I play now.
Yeah, we always used to say when we play poker, like it's if you have to choose from being a good poker player or being a lucky poker player, you would rather choose the lucky poker player the day of the week, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Every day.
So Erin, going deeper into the psychology here, you mentioned that it's beneficial kind of skill to have to learn how to play poker and to learn about risk aversion and kind of different skills that you learn playing poker. Can you go deeper into that, more what you mean? Like what kind of lessons in life, or how do you develop as a person by playing poker more specifically?
Yeah, so I think it's a variety of things, and it also starts with, what your foundation is. Each of us brings a different background and skill level to the table, a comfort level at the table. So one thing that I think will be very familiar to anyone, even if they're not a poker player, is thinking about the tells at a poker table. And what we know is that women, by and large, are really naturally gifted at being perceptive at a poker table. We get an instinct. We feel it. We can sense the way that someone's going to play once you get to a certain foundational level of understanding the game. That's an enormous strength, because we know that, at the poker table, you have that maniac. But aside from that, you're going to have people that truly play by the numbers. They're GTO players. They're thinking through the probabilities. They know the answers. They know the ranges they're going to play. Beginner women don't have that skill. But what they bring to the table, and it really is a secret sauce, is that sense of someone being able to pick up on a micro tell, being able to see a twitch, or even looking under the table and seeing the tapping feet, or knowing that, the hands are closer to the pot. That person thinks, they have the winning hand and they're going to bring down the pot. I think women are very good at being observant. Women also sometimes like not to talk. And poker's great for that. You can play for hours and never say a word. And all your decision-making, all the value that you're putting behind your decision, you do through your gameplay, by shoving those chips, by counting out, what you're going to bet. That's incredibly empowering for women, because the poker table is truly a meritocracy when you begin. It doesn't matter where you went to school, doesn't matter what your title is, doesn't matter how big or strong or fast you are. It only matters how you play your cards. And there are so many environments that women find themselves in business, where those first few things I mentioned, those really do matter. And they have an advantage over you if you don't measure up there. The poker table doesn't work that way. So I think there is the skills that are gained. There are how you bring yourself to the table, how you show up at the table, and then certainly just continuing to level up as you get better and better at the strategies. And poker's so good for practicing failure. Like, that is such a key element in your personal development. And it's such an easy place to fail. We know this. Like, good poker players, maybe they're winning 20% of the time. I mean, they're not winning a lot. You lose more than you win. So when you win, you got to win big to stay in this game. That really can flip the table for women and how they perceive the game. Like, I'm going to make mistakes. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is. Let's not be results oriented. Let's really think through the decision-making process. Where did my decision fall down? And let's not do that again. I think the lessons learned they go on and on and on, and can apply to our lives in so many ways.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned of like sitting down and also the personality type that you are really gets exposed when you're at the poker table. And it's something magic about poker in that regard, that when you're around the poker table, there is no, like, even though people are trying to bluff or to deceive or, try to kind of get you on other thoughts and so on, like, your personality is very exposed after a couple of hours of playing poker. Are you a tight player? Are you a loose player? As you point out here, the kind of the maniac version of yourself in a quite unique way that is very difficult to fake. Like, if you're a tight player, it's very difficult to fake that you are a loose player. Exactly. Eventually your personality will shine through. Like, unlike in real life, you can really mask your personality in many different situations. But at the poker table, you are like naked in many ways. And that maybe is part of the intimidation as well of playing poker, is that you kind of expose yourself in quite drastic ways that you are not used to in real life, perhaps.
I say that often when we're pitching PokerPower to our corporate clients, and we work with over 200 clients around the world, so largely Fortune 500s and big global law firms. And one of the things I point out as an advantage with working with us is playing poker together with your colleagues creates a space where you are going to see those characteristics you were just speaking of, Pierre, where the way your colleagues may behave day in and day out in the workplace you may see an entirely different person sit down at the poker table. They may be extremely competitive. They may not be risk averse at all. They may be able to shove those chips, very aggressively. They may actually be the opposite of that, and that's not something that you've seen. So we've actually worked with one company in particular where the CEO is playing in these games as well because he wants to start to understand his leadership team better. And so by setting up a series of, I think they're doing 8 or 12 lessons with us, they are having, weekly gameplay with the intention of starting to better understand the full person who's sitting at the table. So I think it's brilliant. It's such, you can't really hide it for very long. Like who you are comes out at a poker table.
Absolutely. I want to talk about like another aspect of the psychology of poker is risk aversion, as you spoke about here earlier. We are all like kind of wired differently in that respect, right? And that's shined through at the poker table as well. You talk about the fact that a good thing about learning poker is that you learn to become kind of less risk averse and more willing to take risk. And I want to just kind of dig into that a little bit deeper because on the one hand, while taking risk might also take you further in life, being able to take risk and it means that you can advance quicker in your career and so on and so forth. But on the other hand, it also increases the chances that you can be crippled in life as well. If you take too much risk, it can backfire as well. So is being risk averse really a bad thing in life?
It's a great question, the way that you posed it. So at PokerPower, it's all about the calculated risk. So it's not the wild maniac risk. It's very much knowing some basic framework to the gameplay and then starting to build from there as your strategy. So I think one of the earlier things that we teach with regards to taking risk is your position at the table. And so are you on the button? So you're in the position of strength and you can be a bully at the table, or are you under the gun? And you're not seeing all the action that's about to follow. So you're really in a disadvantage from a decision-making position when you're in those early positions. Position at the table exactly parallels positions in the workforce. So whether it's a boardroom table, it's a negotiation table, it's a meeting you're having with colleagues or clients. It's not so much you're physically sitting at the head of the table, but it's how strong is your starting position, and then what are you going to do to maximize the advantage of where you sit. That is a key element, and it's something that really has to be practiced because, as you know, as the game continues, round after round, hand after hand, your position changes. So you get to experience being really strong. And unfortunately, you might be on the button and you get the 2-7. And then you're like, why didn't you get a pair here? This pair would have been so helpful in this position. Or maybe your chip stack is down. And so you're thinking about these various inputs and what levers you're going to pull with your gameplay. You could get the exact same hand and be, under the gun, and you're going to make a different decision based off of your position and your chip stack size and what you've been able to perceive from the other players at the table. So I think of it as this ever-evolving, complex thought process that there's a reason why poker players get tired, like mentally tired when you play for a long time, is your brain is completely engaged in problem solving at the table. And because we're playing humans, it's erratic. You cannot always predict the way a person is going to behave at a poker table. They may not behave rationally. And that's what makes poker hard, but it also makes it really rewarding when you have those moments of success and you do make the right decision and you do end up with the pot. I think one of the things with risk that's so important is that we know that women are just more hesitant. They are much more likely to fold a hand versus bluff a hand. And that's what we're trying to solve for, because bluffing isn't lying. Bluffing is withholding information. And withholding information is every negotiation you've ever been in. Think about buying a car. I bought a few cars. I'm sure you bought a car. Your salesman is definitely withholding information. And if you don't have a comfort level with how to maneuver in those very opaque situations, which is what the poker table is, you're less prepared to do it in the real world. And so we need to create a safe environment where women can practice what it feels like, what it physically feels like to shove that chip stack in when you're not 100% sure this is what you should be doing, and then see what the result is. And learn from that, adjust your gameplay, and come at it again. So we teach an aggressive style of poker. We're 3 times the big blind pre-flop. We feel really strongly about that. As your gameplay evolves, certainly you're going to play wider ranges. You're going to have different opportunities. You're going to get more comfortable with your own strategy. But in the beginning, I always tell the story of thousands of times now, I have seen a woman who's done the analysis. She knows it's the right decision to shove. And she'll look over at me or the teacher and she'll say, can I just keep back like 6 or 7 chips? Can I just hold on to a few of my chips? And we're like, no, this is what we're trying to prevent. Because the guy sitting next to you, he's shoving all in and he's not hesitating. He's snap calling. You're not doing that. We need you to get comfortable doing that. And so I think it really is a gender difference at the poker table that we can solve for, and we can certainly empower women through getting comfortable with that risk-taking feeling.
Brilliant, Erin. And I want to just talk about your own experience here as well. I mean, what I really like about you, Erin, is that you have really absorbed the way of life of playing poker by delving into the world yourself here. And you mentioned that you kind of started playing poker when you started the PokerPower project. So can you talk about your own experience when you decided yourself to sit down at the table for the first time? You know, as that kind of maniac type player, was it more thrilling or was it terrifying?
It was absolutely terrifying.
Right.
Which I think a lot of your listeners can identify with. If you can think back to that first game. And I played a lot of poker online when we were, first founding PokerPower and getting the company up and running. And it was during the pandemic, so there really wasn't an option to play in person. But the first time I played in person, I was at the Venetian in Las Vegas. So, I said, let's go big here. If we're going to play this game, let's not go, off strip and play somewhere. And I had Xuan Liu, who is one of the PokerPower advisors, and I had one of our teachers, who's now a very good poker player, Amanda Botfeld. So they were with me that night. And I will tell you that I've done a lot of, high-risk things in my life. I have never felt so scared, ever, to sit down at that table. And the table I got placed at had 8 men in it. They definitely had been playing a while. A lot of them had, sizable chip stacks. And I sat down and everything is fluttering, my head hurts, I'm trying not to sweat. I mean, all of it is like I had every physical symptom of being stressed. And as the cards start to get dealt, I am trying so hard to just focus on my whole cards and maybe a little bit of what's happening at the table. And all I'm thinking is, do I raise, do I fold, do I raise, do I fold? What the fuck do I do? And so, that's all going through my brain. Play continues. It ends up, I am heads up. And I've played really quite erratically that first hand. On the river, the full house comes out for me. Now, what is unfortunate is I didn't realize that. I had so many things going through my brain that I didn't even see the full house, so I called it. So my opponent, he didn't shove the entire time. He shoved in a lot of chips. Amanda wrote down all the no's. I can't exactly remember how many, but he made a very, very big bet. And I called that, and I won. So my very first hand ever in my life, and I had paid $300. The buy-in was $300. And suddenly I have this massive chip stack coming my way. Absolutely giddy, like over the moon excited, like I am a rock star. Look what I can do. And then I continued to play for about 90 more minutes. And then I had continued to grow my chip stack. And so I remember turning to Xuan, I'm like, I'm all done. I am all done. Like, let's get up from this table, which is another thing I love about cash is you get to that moment where you just want to get up. You can get up. And so there's this great picture of me going to the cage with, my rack of chips, and getting paid out. And that whole experience from beginning to end could have gone very differently. I could have lost that 300 really quickly, but I didn't. And that was critical because it gave me that confidence boost that, okay, maybe I'm not such an outsider to this game. Maybe I actually can confidently sit at the table, always knowing that, the next game is probably going to go poorly and, I'm not going to win, and that's okay. I needed that first experience to be thumbs up. And it truly was thumbs up. I have all these pictures from that night. Really one of the highlights for me personally in playing this game was to have had both Xuan and Amanda there with me to celebrate and give me the courage to come back. I've played many times since with good and bad results, certainly. But, yeah.
Yeah, what a start when you pursue a new kind of hobby or whatever you want to call it and get that start straight away. I mean, after that, you're going to be hooked no matter what, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of misreading your hand, recently, a couple of months ago, there was a very controversial hand that went viral, not only in the poker world, but all over Twitter, Instagram, all the social media platforms, where Robbie J. Liu, a woman, she was on the podcast here a couple of months ago as well. She played this live stream cash game in the US, and she was involved in a hand where she called mistakenly with Jack high on the turn.
Yep.
and ended up winning the hand. It was a huge controversy. She was accused of cheating by her opponent. She ended up actually giving back part of the money as well. And this just went on and on and on after the hand was completed. Seeing the fact that she was a woman as well, it caused even kind of further controversy after the cards were dealt. What did you make of the hand and then the ensuing drama of this, what went down there?
Yeah, I'm on poker Twitter quite a bit. I won't deny that. So I was following that hand, and the hand heard around the world, literally. And I'm always so surprised when I talk to someone and they don't know about the J4. How do you not know about this? But yes, it blew up immediately. And one of the first reactions that I remember talking to some of our teachers, that night about it, and from our perspective, it was believable. The mistake that she made was highly believable to us because she is not a professional player who's been playing for years and years. She is at the beginning of, her live play journey. She's certainly a very good player. But it was believable to us that she could have misread the hand, or she thought, her whole cards were actually the ones she had in the previous hand. So the story made sense to us. The noise and the eruption that happened that became gendered very quickly, that was really something that, we had to step back from and say, what is really going on here? Why is the attacking happening? Because she made a mistake. She gave back money. It was then investigated, as we all know. She was not accused of cheating in the end. And life went on for her. And one of the things that I love about what Robbie has done is that she keeps showing up at the table. That was, I am sure, personally a really rough experience to go through and have your name, your face, the hand replayed over and over in the media. But she kept coming back. And so her resilience and her persistence and her confidence to say, no, I'm coming back at this table. I belong at this table. I am going to continue to play aggressively at this table. And she's done exactly that. So from a standpoint of, woman player to woman player, so incredibly proud of what she is representing. There have been so many stories and incidences over the years in the poker world that involve men and women, this is one more of them. I think this one got enormous press, which in the end is not a bad thing. Let's bring the spotlight to poker. Let's talk about why this was such a big deal, because it wasn't just about the gameplay. It really wasn't. And let's move forward as a community. The poker world is so tidy in reality. And when we are beating each other up and we are bad-mouthing each other, it is not a good thing for the industry, and it's certainly not a good thing for those of us who live in this industry every day. But at the end, we were super proud of what she accomplished and is continuing to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now the dust has settled somewhat on this situation, and it's quite clear that of all the people who were involved in this incident, Robbie came out as the clear winner, like the only winner in this situation, actually. There was no cheating allegations that came out after this. She continued playing. Now her name is like up here. Everyone knows who she is. And she really kind of embraced this whole situation in a really, really good way for her personally, professionally, and also for, I think at the end of the day, for women in poker as well, because she showed that she could come out on top. Like, she didn't get phased by all of this, and I thought that was just a really good outcome overall, actually, despite the drama, despite the negativity that happened during the whole showdown. But it turned out being a bit of a sunshine story, in my opinion.
I agree. And I think it's, whether it's Robbie or it's any of the other, superstar women who play this game, and there really are some incredibly brilliant women. I always say that, I know a lot of women in poker now who are professionals. And I always say that, I know bankers, I know lawyers, I know tech people. Yeah. I have never met women as bright as the women friends I now have in poker. They are absolutely brilliant women. And what we need to be doing is elevating more of them. They need the platforms. I don't want them to have to go through what Robbie went through to get on the platform, but we need to have more faces that look like the rest of the world. Half the population that's not represented. We need those women to be seen and heard, and we need to know about their successes. Because that is how you drive more women being interested in the game and seeing the possibility of themselves. Even if they never want to play live, they don't want to play cash, that's fine. They need to have examples of women who have succeeded in this space.
Absolutely. So, Erin, do you think there are inherent attributes that makes certain people better at poker than others? Or do you think that the game of poker can be learned and mastered by anyone?
Yeah, learned for sure. I wouldn't go as far as mastered. I think that's a very, very tall order for any of us to feel we've mastered poker. But what we have seen through PokerPower is, as I mentioned, we work with corporations around the globe. We work with very specific industry groups. So we largely work with finance, tech, work with a lot of accountants, and we work with a lot of lawyers. And what we know now, having taught so many, is that the lawyer brain is the most capable of comprehending the game quickly. Now, that may not prove out long term, if they were, to leave the law firm and go be a professional poker player. But what we see is the ability of women lawyers that we've taught to analyze gameplay situations very, very quickly, so much so that they will start to ask questions in lesson 1 that we normally don't get to lesson 4 or 5 or 6. They will start asking about pot odds in lesson 1, and we teach that in lesson 7. And what we found is that their comfort with imperfect information and their comfort with risk analysis is very, very high. And those are two very important innate skills to have. You can certainly practice them and get better at them, but the lawyers come fully equipped. And if it had just been 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, but I'm talking thousands of people that have gone through PokerPower, and we have this segment of the world that are these attorneys, and they're very, very good at poker. So take note of that when you're playing an attorney at your table. Maybe be a little more.
Watch out.
Watch out.
So not surprising, the people who basically are excellent at separating their emotions from the pragmatism are the best people to learn poker as well. In other words, it's a profession made for poker.
One other comment I would make on that, because we've also worked with many senior women in finance, and there is also this correlation between making it all the way to the C-suite in financial services and having grown up playing the game. And so because we are always asking this question, like, if someone does know how to play, where did you learn? And it's usually, somehow growing up, mom, grandma, whoever it may be, dad, uncle. And what we're finding is that women who are making it all the way to the top have a lot of familiarity with this game from their childhood. And it's distinct because, on the flip side, I would say we have so many women in our class who have never played cards. We start truly at the beginning. There's 4 suits in the deck. There's 52 cards. And so we have this sort of imbalance that happens with these women who have succeeded. They've maneuvered a very male-dominant world. They've ended up, in the leadership roles in finance, and they have a poker mind. So I do think there is something to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you would imagine that people who are not risk averse are obviously attracted to the game of poker in correlation to the media cohort, and similarly in the world of finance or in the world of business, people who are not risk averse in general are also those who will eventually reach the top as well. Exactly. So there would be a strong correlation there for sure. Yeah, absolutely. To start rounding things off a little bit here today, Erin, it's really interesting to hear about the product that you have built so far. But I want to ask you as well, like, what is the end goal with PokerPower? What are you trying to achieve here with this product? What will the next few years look like for you?
Yeah, so our North Star, and it really is a mission-led company, is to teach 1 million women how to think and strategize and negotiate like a winning poker player. So I always say, we're going to teach you how to play the game. And it's the game of poker, and it's the game of life. And really, 1 million is just the start. What we really want is we want half the world. We want every woman to be exposed to this game and get comfortable with this game. So we have very lofty goals at PokerPower. We know that the way we will get there is through technology. As much as I love sitting across the table and teaching 8 or 10 women, we will never scale to 1 million by doing that. So we have built a poker app. It's a teaching app. It's where all of our community now gathers. It's become the hub of PokerPower. And in that app, you play games, you come to class, you can learn on your own and practice. You can play against the bots. And we have these really great learning modules for beginners who maybe want to practice a little bit before they come to class. All of those things happen in the app. We will continue to add features and functions to the gameplay, as well as the full community experience of participating in the app. But that app will really become the way that anyone comes to PokerPower, is to install the app and you start to play with us. And what we know is that women don't have poker apps on their phone. They really don't. And so when you install our app, it's really sticky. because it is your first poker app. It is where there is a community that feels safe and welcoming, and you're going to continue to come back to that. So in longer term, we have a monetization strategy around the app, obviously, and building the app economy. So that really becomes truly the engine of PokerPower.
Absolutely. Reaching half the world's population. It's aim for the stars and reach the moon. I like that way of thinking.
I will tell you
no pointing aiming small.
Because we don't think small at all. This is a hard thing to sell. Yeah. I'm selling a product that women really don't want to engage with to half a population that has no interest. But one thing I will tell you is that we run cohorts in Kenya. We're partnered with a nonprofit called Global Give Back Circle. And what's been so great and they're young women, they're high school and they're university age. They go through all 12 lessons with us on a weekly cadence. And then they have tournaments. And they actually built a poker table in the village. They built a poker table. They put our logo on it. There's this fabulous picture of all these young women playing poker. And all the village elders, who are men, are standing behind them. But what we know is that we can scale into populations that don't have familiarity with this game. And the advantage to that is they don't carry the negative stereotypes. Because you and I, and many people in the Western world, we have a negative stereotype of this game for a variety of reasons. When we are able to introduce poker truly as brain game, skill building, strategy building, it has a different perception and filter around it. And the girls and the young women, they come to it really eagerly. They have so much fun playing the game. So we have lots of different things that are happening across the globe to start to penetrate these different communities.
Brilliant, Erin. Thank you so much for coming on board here today. And I just reflecting here during the podcast is taking place, the fact that you have such an interesting background from finance. By the sounds of it, you have a quite successful background. And the fact that you have chosen to go down this path of really taking on board like a huge challenge of getting women into a game that is kind of frowned upon with all the challenges that you have ahead of yourself, and the fact that you have kind of adopted this way of life as well into the product is just really inspiring to see. And so I want to give you some kudos for that. It's really great to see, and really hope that the listeners today also give this a chance to check out the product and to follow you as well. So thank you so much for giving me your time today, and I'm really looking forward to follow the future of the product.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.